Well, a lot's gone down since my last video on the subject. Man of Steel happened. Batman's going to be in the sequel, and he's going to have company. And in the meantime, we're getting 4 Marvel movies in 2014, while DC's got 0. Last summer, I basically laid out a plan to follow up Man of Steel with no more than 3 movies that would lead into Justice League. One of them was a Superman-Batman team-up, so bravo on that one. I really didn't see that announcement coming. The way things are shaping up with Wonder Woman, Flash, and maybe Nightwing, and God knows who else also making appearances in the same movie, it's really starting to look like DC wants to get to Justice League as quickly as possible rather than spread things out. Like they're taking stuff from the 3 movies that I said, but doing them all at once. The reason I still bring it up is that if they can pull off a successful Justice League movie, once they get a proper depiction of those heroes coming together for the first time on the screen of bigness, not only will it set the stage for a sprawling cinematic universe, but from that point forward they can make Justice League movies forever, regardless of how the solo franchises are doing. But the build-up is key. While turning the next production into a pseudo-prequel to Justice League might make the most business sense at the moment, I'm not convinced it's the best strategy in the long term. These characters and their stories were originally conceived to fill out a series format. And while there's a ton of big screen potential there are also a lot of key elements that are compromised when that material is compressed into 2-hour movies released once every couple of years. I don't think fewer movies is the way to go, is what I'm saying. Marvel was able to transplant decades worth of source material into just 6 movies. And now DC's aiming to do the same thing, but in half as many movies. Man of Steel 2 The Dark Knighting, which is quickly turning into Superman, Batman, and Friends, and then Justice League, probably. Now, as much as we want Justice League, we want it to be good, of course. We want Superman, Batman to be good. I have to ask, what happens if this approach doesn't work? It could set back the DC movies all over again, like Green Lantern or worse. Would they just give up for a decade or 2 until the studio's new management wants to take another crack at the vast catalog of characters not named Batman? It largely seems to be a question of quality over quantity. But I don't believe those goals are mutually exclusive in this case. That logic only works if they could reasonably expect to make something on the level of The Dark Knight every time. And to be blunt, they haven't. There will never be another Dark Knight, but that doesn't mean DC movies have no future. We keep hearing that the execs in charge of this whole operation don't really have a long-term plan. Now, I may not run a studio, but I do have a plan. I think it's a pretty good plan, enough that I made a whole video about it. And now, in light of recent developments, I'd like to dig a little deeper into the finer points of that alternative film series proposal, which was, in a nutshell, Batman and Superman, Wonder Woman, and Flash and Green Lantern. We'll start with the one everyone's talking about. I don't have a lot to say about Batman vs. Superman, beyond that I really hope to see a strong focus on the dynamic between the title characters that's made this such an enduring pairing over the years. And I'm worried that cameos from other heroes will take attention away from that and turn it into another missed opportunity. I feel that that was the root of most of the issues in Man of Steel, that it was essentially 2 movies worth of material that had to be smashed together into one. I think it was well constructed for the most part, but a lot of what makes Superman a likable character had to be sacrificed to turn all that into a coherent narrative. Also, Superman, Batman, World's Finest really should be high on the list of possible titles. It would demonstrate a degree of reverence towards the film's comic roots, another thing Marvel's managed to pull off, rather than always trying to make The Dark Knight again. Another thing I'd like to point out is all this focus on an older Batman that Ben Affleck's supposed to be playing. I don't really have a problem with Batman being older and more experienced because that's how he was in the animated series. Seriously, take a look at the timeline of those shows. Bruce Wayne had been Batman for at least a decade in the original episodes, then more time passed and we got the New Adventures, then Superman showed up, and soon after they teamed up. By any math, Batman's been a superhero for a lot longer, but that doesn't mean he has to be old and weathered. I'm more interested in a Batman that's at the top of his game, especially if we're working up to Justice League. The thing one must understand about DC movies versus Marvel movies is that when Marvel got the chance to kickstart their own shared cinematic universe, they were able to take a step outside of the constraints of the studio system and make their own movies, their own way, on their own schedule, and do things that the big studios had never done before. They didn't wait for Iron Man to be successful before they made Incredible Hulk. They just made that too. Now DC is looking to do the same thing, but they're still working inside the same studio machine that they use for all their movies. Warner Brothers can't afford to devote so much attention to superheroes like Marvel did because it would mean major changes to their business model. When Disney bought up Marvel, they also bought that business model. That's why you hear comments from the producers of Man of Steel 2 like, we've got to stay focused on the film we're working on now, when they're pressed on a Wonder Woman movie, which you'll never ever hear from Marvel. If they were to make these 3 movies, they'd shoot them pretty much all at once, which is a big undertaking. To keep pace with Marvel's success, they're going to have to make some moves that seem riskier from within the machine, and avoiding risk means doing what they've always done, focusing on each production one at a time. But with that model, one failure could derail the whole operation, while Marvel's at a point where if they have a movie that isn't so successful, they've got another one on deck to pick up the slack. Now, I still attest that not only is the key to defining the DC brand on film actually Wonder Woman, but a solo film for her is the perfect way to demonstrate once and for all that they're serious about taking things to the next level.